there, it's Dusty with another Reddit story for you. This one is, am I the astronaut for giving my ring back after my fiancé made a comment to his guy friends regarding why we haven't gotten married? My fiancé and I, both 30, have been together for 8 years and engaged for 4 years. We got engaged right before COVID really hit, and obviously that put a huge halt on any sort of planning, and then from there forward, life events halted it more. Became homeless, ended up pregnant and having our child. Now we are back on our feet, but not financially where we could be yet. Back roughly 5 months ago-ish, I brought up marriage and basically approached the idea of having a backyard wedding and a potluck. Basically going cheap because I don't really care so much about the wedding or price or whatever. I just want to wear a pretty dress and have all eyes on me and marry the love of my life. I don't mind expensive bells and whistles. When I brought it up, he told me that wouldn't be a bad idea and that we could probably try planning for July-ish 2025. Okay. But we haven't really talked about it since that point as other shit came up. Here's the issue though. About a month ago, we went down to our neighbor's home, people who have grown to be really good friends since we moved here 1.5 years ago. I was hanging out with the neighbor's wife and her best friend. My fiance was hanging out with a group of 3 to 4 guys having beers and working on vehicles. Well, one of the guys there was talking about his wife and said, once you get married, everything stops. I overheard in the middle of the conversation, so I have no idea what stops during marriage, but it was a negative comment regardless. But anyways, my fiance then starts laughing and goes, that's why I've been dragging my feet on marriage. And the guys just laughed and said, don't do it, man, it's a trap, etc., etc. It really hurt me, but I figured it was just a locker room talk and tried my best to move on. But I couldn't let it go. It sat in the back of my head. So a couple of weeks ago, I brought up getting married again and just ran some ideas by him on simple things, like what he saw our wedding colors being. And he shut down a bit and said something to the effect of, I think we need to weigh our pros and cons of being married first, and shut down the conversation. Oof. Instant plunge to my gut, honestly. So I walked outside to calm myself down, but I just couldn't shake it, honestly. So I went back inside and calmly handed him my ring back and asked him what he wanted for dinner. Oh, that's the most nonchalant, we're not engaged anymore breakup I have ever witnessed. Here's your ring back. What'd you want for dinner? What? I didn't want to make a big deal, so there was no yelling, no crying, nothing. I was calm and moved on. But he instantly asked me what I was doing and why I gave the ring back. So I mentioned his comment to his buddies about dragging his feet and now his comments about needing to wait and weigh the pros and cons before going through with anything, and told him I don't want to wait. Nor do I want to get my hopes up for a marriage that he's clearly changed his mind about. So I would rather he have the ring back and go into this without the sound of wedding bells in my head. Let's just move on, basically. We could still be together, but I don't want my hopes up. Well, he got extremely defensive. He started saying, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, or you're being extreme for no reason. Am I the astronaut? Top comment here. You called him out, and now, apparently, he's going to backtrack instead of double down. Don't fall for it, OP. If you marry him, if he begged you to, theoretically, he'll just present you for it. Honestly, people are so silly because having a baby together is way more of a commitment than marriage. And you've been together for 8 years already. He's still afraid of verbally committing. This paperwork and a single party is the line in the sand for him. The law already considers you married anyway, so it can't be divorce settlements he's worried about. He just doesn't want commitment of marriage, common law marriage, if their state recognizes that. Good for you on clarifying what the relationship is, and if you had the finances for it, I'd say leave and just co-parent because you deserve a partner who loves you enough to make that choice. NTA. Now, yeah, it's matching energy. Yeah, it was a warranted response because it was tested. Like her observations during his locker room talk with the boys were tested later on. She's like, okay, is he truly dragging his feet? Let's test this out. Mentioned some things, and then he shut it down. So she validated it at that point. I call bullshit on him, though. I call bullshit on his locker room talk. You know, they were talking about sex. That's not a secret. It's not, yeah, they were talking about how it stops once you get married, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, that's why I'm dragging my feet, man, blah, blah, blah. His let's wait, or I think we really need to weigh the pros and cons. That's a huge red flag. Him saying, let's weigh the pros and cons. Yeah, it's, okay, signing a paper. There's legal obligation. If you're in a state that doesn't recognize common law marriages and you're tying everything together, if shit would hit the fan later on, yes, it's going to be more painful. But you guys already have a kid together. We're like, what is he worried about? What is it? What is he worried about? I don't understand. You know who I would like to have come up and give some feedback on this? For the first time tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we got to hear the one and only, equally as exhausted as I am, Candy Thunder. Hi, Tighter. We got the heat lamps on for you again.
Oh, awesome.
Chantel says he's cheating. Is he cheating?
Oh, I don't know. But here's what I do know. I know that if I wasn't in a room, you would not talk about our marriage or the potential marriage that we may have had like this. Like, you wouldn't speak about our relationship in this way.
No.
And I know that for 100% certainty.
I wouldn't say something to someone else that I wouldn't say to you.
There you go. I don't know. I would not have stayed 8 years if marriage was something that I wanted out of a relationship. If two people don't want marriage and they want to be together, like, that's great. But if you want marriage and he doesn't, then you have to decide if you're still compatible at that point. But if I want to be married, like, I'm good enough to have a kid with, but not good enough to go to the courthouse with and like sign a document, that doesn't make sense. And also, don't ask people to marry you if you don't want to marry them, or even get married in general. Like, that's just, like she said, that he got her hopes up. She wanted to do this. She wanted to have a day that was about their love and their relationship. She wanted to put on the dress and she wanted to get married. And he was like, I don't know. Find new friends, dude, I guess. Because not every marriage is like a dead bedroom. But I mean, like, life is hard. And if you find someone that you can do life with, and, you know, they help fill up your cup, then lock that shit down. That's all I'm saying. And don't let it go, because just being shitty to the person that's there for you. And she's still saying she wants to be in a relationship with him, which if he takes marriage off the table, I don't see this relationship lasting, because that's something that she's having to give up. That's something she's having to sacrifice on. And she doesn't have to do that. Like, she does not have to sacrifice what she wants out of life to give this guy who talked shit about her and their relationship. Like, she doesn't have to do that.
Yeah. And Sergeant Mac, to your point, Sergeant Mac said, I'm not getting cheating vibes. I think his boy's got in his head. And now he's backing out. And I agree with that too. But you can't do that as a husband and as a father.
Right.
You can't. You can't do that kind of shit. Your first priority is there in your inner circle. Yeah. That's where you're going to have the most open and honest communication. And if you were puffed up, peacocking, and just talking shit in front of the boys, that's one thing. But for her to validate it and come back, I wish it would have been a deeper conversation. You know what I mean? I wish she would have come back in with the ring in her hand and be like, okay, here's where we're at. Here's what I'm about to do, and here's why. Yeah. What do you have to say?
I think she came back in with the ring in her hand and handled it the way she did, because she's obviously very hurt. And she's like, if I go in there guns blazing, it's just going to be this crazy fight. And I mean, I'm just speaking as a woman, like, and sometimes, like, that's not what we want. Like, that's not what we're after. Like, that's not the point. And so she did this. She's like, fine, I'll just meet you at the level that you're at right now and try to work through what I'm feeling. But obviously this is going to come back around. Obviously this is going to be a much bigger argument, and they're going to have to find out if they're actually compatible.
Yeah. I have a prediction.
What's that?
I think based on his response to her giving the ring back, he's now dealing with an ego blow. His ego, regardless of the reasoning behind giving that ring back, the symbolism of receiving a ring back, his response to was it was to escalate. And I think it's going to now be a problem until it either destroys this relationship or they work through it. Right. Now, if he still allows other people's chirping to get in his ear and have anything to do with his relationship, it's doomed from the get-go. Like, it just is. And if he's already too far into that, it's done. But if he can, maybe this is the pain that creates change. Maybe.
8 years. That's a long relationship. And like I said, if you're happy to just spend those years together and like that's not your main goal, then that's fine. Like, that works because those two people have an understanding. But if you want marriage out of a relationship and you have a kid together and you're living together, like, what the is the problem? Like, why don't you want to be married? Right. I guess that's the point. And then to hear, like, she has these fears already, and then she hears him say this and he vocalizes what she's already been feeling. So of course that's not going to, like, just go away. That's going to haunt her mind. Like, that's going to be the constant thing that she's thinking about. And I don't know. I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed if I overheard. I never would, but if I overheard something like you saying that about our relationship, I would be upset.
Yeah. 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 And Dr. Sweets, says, I mean, would the baby be around if he hadn't proposed? Maybe not.
Yeah.
It seems like he used the proposal as a way to like reserve her, take her off the market.
Right.
Right. But he doesn't want to be trapped, or he wants the freedom of being able to change his mind later, because that's the only thing that would prevent him from going through with being married. Right.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand. But this is like the definition of have your cake and eat it too. Like you have everything, but like I said, if you want marriage and the other person doesn't, like you are no longer compatible at that point.
Yeah.
And that should have been what she said to him. Like not just giving a ring back and be like, well, we can still be together. Like, because that's not really what you want. You've already stated what you want in this post. And so you're compromising what you want, and that will come back as resentment. There's just no way that it doesn't.
Yeah. It's going to get rough.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I think she took the first step now. Now
she's recognized that she is unhappy, and she's unhappy because of this reason.
Yeah.
And she's, like you said, she's taken that first step to say, this is no longer what I want, because I've heard how you feel about it. I've heard what you think about it. And sex does not stop after you get married. Like, for sake, you're adults.
That was punny too.
Haha. But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That's such a cop out, in my opinion, that it's like sex stops after marriage. Shit happens. Life gets busy. Like, you have to put energy and effort into things that you want to make out of your relationship. No, it's not just going to keep being easy like it was in your honeymoon stage. It's going to it's hard work.
But 8 years into a relationship, like, what changes day to day?
I'm like, if your sex life is still good, it's probably still going to be good after marriage.
You're fine.
You're 8 years in.
Marriage is tough, right? But I think relationships are tough.
Yeah.
And you can be together for, 8 years, and you've been through it together. You guys were homeless together. You're raising a kid together. Like, you've been through it. Like, you should be able to work through this, but it's going to take him swallowing some pride and being like, look, I f***ed up, and I didn't mean what I said. I was just posturing and just trying to be one of the boys, but you are my everything. I have already committed in my heart to you for the rest of my life, and doing it on paper doesn't mean anything to me. I'm just scared of making a legal commitment. And if that's what he feels, say that. It's really hard for guys to communicate feelings, though. It's really tough for people to communicate feelings, period. But guys especially, because when we're brought up, we're not brought up to openly communicate feelings. It's something
we're changing that though.
I know, yes, we are. We are changing that.
The world is changing.
It is changing, but it's still tough. And we have conversations about this. For me, communicating my feelings is not something that I really started to figure out or get decent at, even not good, but decent until like my 30s. It takes work. It takes time, but pain creates change. And now, hopefully we get an update someday, and it's like, hey, here's what he did. He sucked it up and made it right. And now we're married and we're happy and we're stable and blah, blah, blah. Or it's going to be his ego got the better of him and this whole thing fell apart.
I mean, his ego already got the better of him, because he already went to like defensive doubling down on like what he said. So, I mean, I feel like he's got 2 things to come back from now. I don't know. My only thing is find somebody who has your back when you're not in the room. Find someone who speaks life into you when you're not in the room, because that's going to be your relationship.
Yeah.
That's going to be the person that's your partner, not somebody that just sees you as a placeholder for what they think a relationship should be.
Yes. Not the person who takes care of his kid.
And if you don't have that, work towards that, or find somebody else, or be single, because I don't know.
0 is greater than -1.
Yeah.